Our second reading this morning comes to us from the book of Job, chapter 28, verses 12 to 28. Hear now the word of the Lord. But where shall wisdom be found? And where is the place of understanding? Mortals do not know the way to it, and it is not found in the land of the living. The deep says, "It is not in me," and the sea says, "It's not with me." It cannot be gotten for gold, and silver cannot be weighed out as its price. It cannot be valued in the gold of Ophir, in precious onyx or sapphire. Gold and glass cannot equal it, nor can it be exchanged for jewels of fine gold. No mention shall be made of coral or of crystal. The price of wisdom is above pearls. The chrysolite of Ethiopia cannot compare with it, nor can it be valued in pure gold. Where then does wisdom come from? And where is the place of understanding? It is hidden from the eyes of all living, and concealed from the birds of the air. Abaddon and Death say, "We have heard a rumor of it with our ears." God understands the way to it and knows its place. For God looks to the ends of the earth and sees everything under the heavens. When God gave to the wind its weight and apportioned out the waters by measure, when God made a decree for the rain and a way for the thunderbolt, then God saw it and declared it, established it and searched it out. And God said to humankind, "Truly, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. And to depart from evil is understanding." This is the word of the Lord. So this reading is from the story of Job, which is a fable imagining what the conversation might look like if God were asked why bad things happen to good people. We're asked to imagine a man who is good and faithful and kind and never whines about having to wear a face mask and never flips people off when he's caught in traffic and never cheats at cards. Or whatever positive qualities you admire, imagine that this Job guy has them. Job also happens to have lucked out with a good job and a strong marriage and children he's proud of. He's a happy dude, which is to be expected because he has a lot to be happy about. So he gives to his church to express his gratitude and can often be heard loudly praising God. But as we are all very much aware, there is always someone who wants to pick a fight or start a debate just to be difficult. We all know that guy. Anyway, he says to God, "God, does this smug, self-righteous Job dude have to be so in my face about how happy he is? He's only even praising you because he's a suck-up." But God says, "Okay, so first of all, can we not with name-calling, please? Job isn't smug. He's grateful. He isn't self-righteous. He's kind. He isn't praising me because he wants something from me. He praises me because he loves me. I love him. I love you, too, for that matter. Although you do seem determined to make that hard sometimes." But the guy is determined to pick a fight with God. You know, as you do. He says that Job wouldn't be as good or as faithful or as kind if he didn't have a happy and easy life. But God insists that yes, Job would still be good and faithful and kind, even if he were to lose his riches, even if he were to lose his family, even if he were to lose his own health, even if he were to lose his standing in society. Again, Job is an illustration to prove a point. It's not a historical book, it's a wisdom book. And the conversations that people have with God are there to explore ideas, not to record an account of a time when God tortured and killed people in order to win an argument. So imagine that Job, who has always been good and faithful and kind, loses almost everything that he loves. His heart is broken, but he still worships God, even if his songs of praise are now in a minor and more hesitant key. Even if his prayers are more please and why than thank you. We've all experienced pain and loss in our lives. It isn't hard to imagine Job as he falls to the ground, his head between his knees, drowning in sorrow. But even his sorrow is still a conversation with God. He doesn't love or believe in God any less, even if the universe doesn't make much sense to him anymore. Even if he doesn't know what tomorrow might bring, even if his whole life has been unraveled and thrown to the winds. If you've ever gone through a time when your faith was the only thing that kept you going, you know how Job felt. If you've ever come to question everything you were ever taught, but still could never doubt that God was there, even if you weren't quite sure what that meant, you understand. His friends come, and for several days they just sit in silence together. They wonder why these hard things have come to Job. They throw out some ideas, but none of them really knows. It's not like Job had set any of these tragedies in motion. It's not like he had done anything to be punished for. Sometimes bad things just happen. Not for any reason, but because the universe is huge and complicated and wild and dangerous. When God made us, life was declared to be good. We are good and beloved. God is good. But God never promised that the life we have been given would be safe. My absolute favorite description of God is a description of the great lion Aslan in C.S. Lewis's Narnia books. Lucy asks Mr. Beaver if Aslan is safe. Safe? Who said anything about safe? Of course he isn't safe. But he's good. Not safe, but good. That's God. That's the universe. That's the essence of what it means to be alive. Eventually, Job gets a bit frustrated with his friends. He doesn't want them to tell him what to do. He didn't ask for their advice. He just wanted to be reassured that no matter what he was going through, he wasn't alone. He just wanted someone to listen. I don't often talk about art in my sermons because I don't usually have the ability to show you colored pictures. I hate a lot of things about the realities of our lives during this pandemic and the way that COVID has changed the way we worship, but I am glad that I can share this painting with you. The worship series we've been following this summer has been called Unraveled, looking at stories in the Bible of times when people's lives have fallen apart and they've turned to God. The team who put together the prayers and poetry that have gone along with the chosen stories also created a piece of art to illustrate each one. This piece is called The Way to Wonder, and I'd like to share the way that the artist, Lyle Gwyngarity, describes it. She wrote, "When I first began this painting, I hoped to render Job's hymn to wisdom visually. I imagined being stuck in the deep, as if my body was anchored under water and I was looking up to the surface. I imagined textures and symbols emerging in the swirl of the dark to portray Job's search for meaning, his grasping to find a way out. But as the painting came together, it was all wrong. The strokes and symbols were too literal, too formulaic. I almost scrapped the canvas altogether, but decided to keep going, to add more layers, more depth, more gold. A window, doorway, or portal emerged in the middle of the painting. I felt a release and realized that, while I started with lament, I ended with awe. The last line of today's reading is, "To fear God is wisdom," Job 28:28. The Hebrew word for fear, yirah, literally translates to awesome. True wisdom lies in breathless reverence for God's mystery and expansiveness, for God's presence that is far beyond what we can control, or reason, or make far too small. I think I've mentioned before that my friend Alex likes to translate the word as live in holy awe of God rather than fear God, which I think gives a better sense of the word and the way we understand English in this century. It isn't that we're afraid because God is scary. It's that even though we know that God is good, we also know that God isn't always safe. At the end of the story of Job, Job ends up with a new wife and new children and new herds and fields. We are assured that everyone lives happily ever after, and that God wins the debate with the guy who really wanted to argue that Job would only worship God while he was well off and happy. But even if the story is a fable meant to illustrate the complex nature of God and the universe, too vast to be understood, the ending has never quite sat right with me. Because no matter how great his new wife and children and cows might be, it doesn't make his first wife or oldest children any less dead. But I think that's why this painting spoke to me so much this week, even though I'm not usually one to go for modern art, much less abstract art. The heavy layers of dark paint, the clouds of sadness are still there, under the layers, even under the gold on top. The universe is like that, and so is life, because grief is like that too. We can't always control the brushstrokes of the universe, but we can trust that God is with us in every layer, whether it's heavy or sheer or suffocatingly indigo sad or touched with divine gold. God is with you, I promise. Even if you can't feel it. Even if you aren't sure what any of it means. Even if you aren't sure whether or not you believe it. God is with you. God isn't safe, but God is good. And the Bible tells us that to understand that is to be wise. We spend our lives trying to understand God, life, the universe, and everything, but eventually we fall into silence. Out of frustration or exhaustion or pain or just not knowing. And God sits with you in that silence. Maybe the silence was the answer after all.